everybody, and welcome back to another TMI moment. I am Terra, the T in the TMI, and you are listening or watching to Terra's Motivational Inspiration. And today we are going a little bit deeper. And so y'all know last week we did the 3-day self-care challenge. If you took the challenge, go ahead and do me a favor. Go ahead and comment that you took the challenge. And if you didn't take the challenge, go back and look at my post from Thursday and join the challenge, because although it was a 3-day challenge, that is something that I want to challenge each of us to make a conscious effort to do daily, because it's so important. And like I shared on Thursday, it's so important that we don't just think that self-care is for women. Men, you need self-care as well. I remember I used to think that self-care only consisted of getting your hair done, getting your nails done, pampering yourself, by going to the salon, getting a massage or things like that. And I eventually learned that that's not just what self-care is. And one area that I believe that a lot of us struggle in is we neglect it, is our emotional well-being and our health. And so y'all, I want y'all to come on in. Y'all go ahead and share this video with somebody. Let them know that we are live with TMI. We are talking with Terra. We're going a little bit deeper today, and today is going to be a little bit different, because I'm going to share a story with you, and I want you to see how this it really helped me to see how this related to me. A lot of times I am a writer. A lot of people may not know it, but I used to write plays all the time, and I would get in this creative space and I would just begin to write. And I've also play with the idea. There are a couple of books that I have started that are fictional books, but with real life lessons and principles. And I've played with the idea of releasing those, and so I may do that one day. But that's how I learn a lot of stuff, because I put it in my mind, and I have a big imagination. So I think of a story, and that's how it sticks with me. And so that's what I want to do today. I want to tell y'all about a story about Shaquanda and Keisha. And so and so I want y'all to sit with me, because although it may be an illustration of a story, it's going to talk about some real issues that I think a lot of us are facing. So like I said, if you're on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, y'all go ahead and share this with somebody else. Y'all, if y'all catching the replay, do #replay. Let me know that you're watching. If you haven't subscribed to the YouTube channel, go ahead and subscribe to the YouTube channel, and we're going to go ahead and jump right on into the meat of things. So I was talking about self-care, and how I thought it was all about pampering yourself and stuff like that. And so while some of those things, like getting your hair done, going to the salon, and all that good kind of stuff, can help us to get our mind off of those emotional challenges that we are facing, unless we actually address our feelings and our emotions, we're not going to really be able to properly process them. So many times we spend our time distracting ourselves from the real issues that we're facing, and we're just suppressing those emotions. And so the problem is that if we're injured, or if we have a wound, or we're wounded by something emotionally, and we don't deal with it, it doesn't make it go away. It is still there. And even though we may remove ourselves from the situation, we may no longer associate with the people or the things that caused us to be hurt, if we have not properly treated that wound, it can actually become worse. And I found myself in that place. And I'm kind of like a unique person when it comes to different things, because I'll start studying just random things. Like if I want to know how a certain process work, or if I want to understand something, I'll just study it. I'll do research on it until I can understand it a little bit better. And so during one of my times where I was going through the process of healing some of my own personal emotional wounds, I began to study about wounds in general, and I learned a whole lot. And so I shared this morning on my page a quote that I read from the Maine Health website, and they said that a wound that doesn't heal can be a constant source of pain and frustration. And I'm sure a lot of you can understand that if you've ever dealt with any type of chronic illness, any chronic pain. I remember several years back, I was diagnosed with chronic daily headaches and migraines, and I got to the point to where, like, a headache that most people would, not be able to go to work, not be able to function. I began, it was so, it had become so common that I began to learn how to manage that. And then I would have migraines. Now, the only time that I wasn't able to function with the migraines was when it was debilitating, like where my vision was actually blurred, or, sometimes you get a funny taste in your mouth, you see lights and all that kind of stuff. And sometimes I would even get to the point to where I would get dizzy. I used to have blackout spells. The doctors never knew what was going on with me, never found out what was going on with me. Tried to subscribe. They probably were trying to subscribe me to some stuff, but no, they were prescribing me different types of medicines, heavy medicines that had all kinds of warnings and all that kind of stuff. And I was not going to take it because I was like, I got a migraine, but this thing says that it could cause an aneurysm. Like, you know, so I really had to lean in prayer and ask God to show me, and in prayer he really did show me what I needed to do, and now I don't even deal with that anymore. But today, what I want to talk to you about, I want to start like a little mini series, and when I say mini, it's going to be a mini itty bitty series on the importance of healing, because healing is such a broad topic. I'm not a medical doctor, I'm not a psychologist, I'm not a counselor, so anything that I share today is not to replace you getting professional help. This is just information that I've learned personally that has helped me, and I want to help other people. Y'all remember I said when I learn something good, I like to share with other people. So that's what I'm doing today. And so I was looking on social media, and I saw Pastor Edmondson or his wife. One of them shared a post that said, "Heal so that you can hear. Heal so that you hear what's being said without the filter of a wound." Let me I'm gonna pull that up and read that exactly how they said it. They said, "Heal so you can hear what's being said without the filter of a wound." Now, y'all know a lot of times, I do my business on social media. And so I try to make sure that I give everybody their credit, and I don't, don't take anything from anyone, without giving them the proper credit. This is something that I think we may need to unpack a little bit more, just from the revelation of what I received when I read that, from what I've been through. But today I just want to discuss wound care. Um, Now, again, I'm not a medical doctor, I'm not a therapist or a counselor. So if you're dealing with some emotional trauma or some emotional issues and you need professional assistance, please get the help that you need. But I am going to share some things with you that can help you do a self-evaluation, or maybe and let you know that, hey, you do need to get some outside assistance. Now, as I was studying about wounds, I found out that a simple wound like a cut or a scrape, if it's not treated properly, it can become a serious health issue, and it can become a really it can become a risk to your entire well-being. So we want to do this emotional self-check. Okay, so we want to first ask ourselves, do we have any open wounds? Now, do we have any wounds? Do we have any hurts? Has something in your life ever happened that caused a pain, that caused you to it kind of caught you off guard, it took your breath? I'm trying to use some terms that sometimes we say, because a lot of times we like to dumb down what happens to us, and if we do that, sometimes we can't identify the wound. So the first step in your emotional self-check is you have to identify the wound, and that requires you to be honest about some things. Then number two, you got to clean the wound, and we're going to talk about that a little bit more in depth on down. But then we're gonna then you have to stop the bleeding. And last but not least, you got to cover the wound and allow it to heal. And then sometimes you're not able to do that on your own. So if you see that you're not able to heal or the wound is too deep, you have to seek professional assistance. So I want to look at this from the wound care from an emotional aspect. Okay, so let me indulge just a little bit and use my imagination. I'm gonna use this story about Shaquanda and Keisha. Okay, so Shaquanda is like a work supervisor, and she said something to Keisha one day that she didn't like, and she well, actually she would say it almost every day, and she would say little hurtful things. She would throw out little things, and then one day she lied on Keisha at work, and she was telling people stuff that wasn't true about Keisha, and she was really trying to destroy Keisha's character, because a lot of people like Keisha. Keisha was very friendly. Keisha was just this nice person, and Shaquanda didn't really understand why people liked her, why people were drawn to her, and so she just really always had it in for Keisha. And so the only thing that Keisha could think of that really happened between her and Shaquanda is one day Shaquanda's boss came in, and she was giving Keisha all these compliments and was talking about her work, and Keisha's name had been swirling around the office concerning a promotion. So Shaquanda didn't like that, because Shaquanda, had some rejection issues that she was dealing with on her own, and she's the type that she always wanted to be on everybody's mind. She always wanted to be on everybody's radar. She was the one that wanted to stay on top, and so she would do anything that she needed to do to stay on top, because she came from the bottom and now she at the top, and now she think this is where she belonged, which that may have been the case, but she didn't care who she hurt in the process. So she got with her little work crew and all that kind of stuff, and Shaquanda just began to talk and really went in on Keisha, right? And so Keisha, because they had been working together for so long, Keisha had a little bit of dirt on her own that she could have actually used against Shaquanda. And actually, if she would have used that against Shaquanda, if she would have went to the higher bosses, then Shaquanda could have lost her job, or she would have been seriously reprimanded for some of the things that she had been done. But Keisha really felt uneasy about using that, even though she was hurt. She just kind of brushed it off, but it bothered her so much she had to kind of get it out. So she went and she confided in some of her closest friends, and she was telling them how I got this stuff, I could talk about her, and she kind of told them everything that was going on at work. And so her friends encouraged her, because she had some good friends, and so they encouraged her that she needed to keep on doing what she was doing, and she needed to ignore the drama. So just a little backstory about Keisha. When Keisha was younger, when she was in school, she went through several situations like this. She would tell the teacher, she would tell her parents, but nobody really did anything about it, because it was like, sticks and stone may break my bones, but words won't never hurt you, and stuff like that. And so everybody would tell her, brush it off, don't worry about it. And so she just kind of left it there. And Keisha had always felt like growing up that her feelings really didn't matter, because every time she would try to tell her mom about something, she would tell her, well, you go and sit down, or she would brush it off as if nothing was going on, right? And so she learned to just brush things off, to not really deal with her emotions, and that was her motto. And so she would just go on and try to act like nothing was wrong. And so people actually thought that Keisha was like this strong independent woman, that nothing bothered her. And so she became her own cheerleader, and that wasn't by choice, but that was really by default. She began to cheer for herself, not because that's really what she wanted to do, but because she felt like nobody else was going to cheer for her like she needed them to. So she built up these walls, and because she had learned at an early age that was the best thing for her, that became her defense mechanism. And so I learned when I was studying about wounds, that when a physical cut becomes infected, it starts to build up pus and fluid. So, going back to the story, while Keisha thought that this wall was built up, with strength. It was actually filled up with distrust, with fear, with people pleasing, with perfectionism, with control, and all of that. And it was really like a defense mechanism that instead of being a source of protection for her, it became like her prison. And so Keisha never really dealt with the emotional cuts from her childhood. She never dealt with the emotional cuts from school or anything that Shawanda had caused her. And because she felt like these were just minor cuts, because she was made to feel like her feelings were minor, they were not anything big, it wasn't really causing anything to change in her life, so she felt like she was okay. However, Keisha had also, of course, she had been in a few relationships, and one of the main reasons why she had not yet found somebody who she could really settle down with is because she would easily get irritated if she felt like they dismissed her feelings, if they didn't give her the right type of motivation, or if they were not the right type of cheerleader for her, even if it wasn't the guy's intent. If he shared anything about her with anyone else, good or bad, she would get upset. She wanted everything to stay extremely private. So it was just hard for her to find somebody who just got her, who just really, understood her and understood what she needed. And so I found out that another sign of a wound being infected is irritation. Sometimes even the slightest touch can cause a wound to cause some pain, or to cause you to be irritated, or it would cause some frustration on your end. So Keisha, she was working on this job, and because of how Shaquanda had done her, she set out. She was like, "Listen, I'm my own cheerleader. I'm cheering myself on, but I'm about to prove a point to Shaquanda and everybody that believes Shaquanda. So this is what I'm gonna do." So Keisha became so engulfed with her efforts to prove this point that she was good enough. She became so engulfed with the point, in proving her point that Shaquanda was lying. She wanted to show people that Shaquanda was such a liar, and that all these things, that all these people, the girls, the mean girls at school, and even her mom, even though she didn't harbor any ill feelings towards her mom, she loved her mom, but she wanted to show everybody, look, I am somebody, I'm worth it, I am valuable. So she set out to prove these points. And so she began to kind of deviate from where she used to, her actions, her normal actions began to change. So she began to start to treat some of the employees under her the way that Shaquanda used to treat her. And Keisha, because she now had reached a certain level of prestige, remember, she went from she came from the bottom, now she at the top. So now, she got people that's around her, because she making a little bit more money, so she's able to dress a little bit different. She's able to drive a little, some different types of vehicles, and so now she has a crowd. She has some friends now, whereas before she was kind of a lone wolf, because she kind of kept to herself and she was kind of quiet. It's a piece of hair that okay, y'all, I'm sorry. It kept on getting in my eye. But so she really, she got a crowd that, and the approval of that particular crowd made her feel so good. She felt like, now my feelings actually matter, there are people who really care about me. So she had never felt better emotionally, so she thought, because she felt like, I'm getting everything that I deserved. And so one day, Keisha friends had been noticing the change in her attitude. Her talk had begun to change, and so they decided that they wanted to sit down and talk with her for a moment. And they told her that they had been noticing the change and that they were concerned about her. So they kind of did like an intervention. And so remember, these were the friends that when she was hurt by what Shaquanda said, and when she wanted to do the wrong thing, they were the ones that encouraged her to do the right thing. And so she knew that they cared about her. She knew that they loved her, because they were with her when she was at the bottom, and now that she's at the top, they're still with her. However, now the emotional wounds that Keisha has, they have become to get infected. And so instead of her seeing that her friends are caring about her and they are concerned about her, she went off. She blew up. and she began to cut them off. And she told them, hey, y'all are just jealous, and she just, y'all not loyal, because if y'all really cared about me, y'all would understand. Y'all know how that, y'all know how sometimes that happens. And Keisha had finally found her a man that understood her. And so, when after this happened with her friend, she went to him, and she just knew that he was going to agree with her. And so she told him about what happened with her friends, and he was like, well, babe, I understand what you're saying. And, but, I know these girls, they've been with you before anybody, they held you down when you felt like, nobody else was around. So he tried to explain to her from a neutral perspective that, hey, maybe you were a little too harsh. But Keisha didn't want to take it that way. She didn't want to see it that way, so she got upset. And so she was like, you not loyal. Hey, and she began to think of herself more highly than what she should have thought of herself. And so she decided, I'm gonna cut you off too. And so Keisha had cut off everybody that loved her genuinely, that cared about her, who was not really concerned about her title, who would have been there if she had a title or not, who would have been there with her if she had money or not. But she began to cut all of these people off, except the crowd of people that she called her loyal friends. And these were the people who thought everything she did was right. She couldn't do anything that was wrong. And even if she did something that was wrong, she was able to convince them that it was right, because these were people who were drawn to her because they were from the same situation. They felt the same way that she felt, about things. And they had the same, they were suffering from wounds themselves. They were hurt people. And so, hurt people draw people. Hurt people draw hurt people. Honestly, I know there's a saying that hurt people, but hurt people also draw people. If I'm hurt about something and I begin to talk about it and I begin to dwell on that, then there are other people who like, girl, I understand what you're talking about. And a lot of times we'll begin to talk about the hurt, and we just a whole bunch of hurt people together. And so these people, they weren't necessarily caught up in who she was as a person. They weren't really that concerned about her healing, because she made them feel better. But she was doing so well, she was somebody that they aspired to be. They looked at her title, they looked at her position, they looked at her possessions, her prestige, and the image that she portrayed to everyone, and they were blinded by the truth. And so she had that crowd, she had the cheerleaders. And so this is something that I learned about wounds, and this is one of the most important things, that when you don't properly clean and cover a wound, it can allow bacteria, viruses, and fungi to enter into the wound and cause an infection. And one of the infections that is known as sepsis, and that's when your body overreacts to an infection, and it releases chemicals into the bloodstream that ultimately causes organ failures and possibly even death. And so this is a very serious situation. And what was happening with Keisha was she had become emotionally septic. And while on the outside she appeared to have everything, she appeared to have the best life, the truth of the matter is that she was always looking for the next big thing, because she was really trying to fill that void that was on the inside. She was wounded, and that called, and it was a whole bunch of small cuts and scrapes, and it was minor at first, but because she never treated them properly, over time they became like a gaping hole in her heart. And so, now I've told you the story about Keisha, and my imagination kind of, wild a little bit. So y'all might say that's a bit extreme or whatever. And I'm nowhere near where Keisha is, or nowhere near what Keisha was. And my situation may not be that. It may be something else. Your situation may be you got a broken heart from your ex-boyfriend, or from your ex-girlfriend. Your situation may be that you've gotten a divorce. Your situation may be that you're a parent and your child has been acting up and has said some really hurtful things to you. It may be something from childhood that has gone on in your life. And so you may not have the same condition as Keisha, but you do need to ask yourself, do I have any open wounds? And do an emotional checkup. And so y'all remember, I told you that number one, you need to identify the wound. You need to go back and find out that place where you were cut, that place where it was a scrape. See, sometimes people think that, a little paper cut, that's not going to hurt anything. But if I allow something to get inside of that little paper cut, then it can cause an infection, and then it can cause a whole plethora of things that could be really detrimental to my health. And so I got to identify the wound. And then number two, I got to clean the wound. When I'm cleaning the wound, that means I got to get all that bad debris out. So I got to be open and honest about some things. I got to be open and honest about my feelings. I have to be truthful and say that this hurt me. No, I'm not just angry. No, I'm not angry about what you said. No, it hurt me because I thought we were in a better position than where we were. And when you're open and when you're honest, that's helping to clean that wound out from all that debris that's in there. Because if you leave some of that debris in there, then it can cause an infection. And then number three, you got to stop the bleeding. So I'm open, I'm honest, I've gotten the debris out, but I'm still bleeding because it really hurt and it did cut me. And sometimes it cuts deep enough for it to bleed. But this is the thing, it's not okay for you to bleed on everyone. And this is also what I learned about when I was, studying wound care and all of that this is where the pressure is applied to the wound. And in order to stop the bleeding, they say that you need to make sure to apply pressure with a clean washcloth or gauze. And so, we're talking about emotional healing. So, what is your washcloth? What is your gauze? What is that thing that you're using to apply pressure? Well, sometimes in the case of an emotional treatment, it may be that you need to speak with someone outside, or you may, because sometimes you have to get to the truth of the matter. And when you apply pressure, sometimes it don't feel so good. It can hurt a little bit. But this is where you have to be careful, because this is not the place for you to go and talk to your little messy friends. Those friends that's going to encourage you to keep the drama going. Those friends that's only going to be your yes people. This is not the place for the yes people. This is for the people who genuinely care about you, who are not afraid to tell you, no, girl, you were wrong. And this is how, but listen, even though you were wrong and I disagree with how you handled that, I'm still there for you. Or this is the place where you go get a trusted advisor or a professional with experience in dealing with your particular type of wound to help apply that pressure so that the bleeding can stop. This is also the place where you need to not be on social media. This is also the place where, like, it gets me when people, post subliminal messages. I am a very, very direct person, and so I try to make sure I don't do a lot of janking, or I don't know. I'm from the South. That's what we call it. Where you talk about people and stuff like that, for fun. I don't do a lot of that because I'm very direct, and so like if I start janking, like I go for the juggler, like and I just and I don't be, it ain't, if you're talking about me, then I'm gonna talk about you. But sometimes, I cut a little too deep. So I don't do a bunch of janking or subliminal messages or anything like that, because I'm just a direct person. And so there have been a couple of posts that I've made and people were like, girl, oh, what's going on? Trust and believe. If something is going on, that is probably going to be the main time where you're not going to see me on social media, or you're not going to see me posting about something that's going on. Why? Because all that does is that's not stopping the bleeding. That's aiding the bleeding. And one thing that I can't afford to do, I can't afford to bleed out on other people. If you're trying to be anything in life, if you're trying to be free to be you, if you're trying to be your authentic self and all of that, for me, being my authentic self, meaning being more like Jesus, I can't afford to bleed on other people. And so I'll shut it down. I won't post, or you'll just see me posting, pictures, and y'all don't think when I just post my pictures, oh, she must be going through something. No, that's not the case. I'm just saying that, a lot of times people send these subliminal messages. That is not bold. That is not, um that is not that's not a good thing. That shows your level of maturity. That shows that you're immature. That actually shows that you have wounds that you need to get healed from. Okay. So stop the bleeding. Don't bleed. It's not okay. It's not okay for me if someone else did something to me. It's not okay for me to go and bleed on someone else that knows that person. That's one thing that there have been a couple of situations that I've been in personally, where I could have actually went and told my side of the story and caused people to behind backs and all that kind of stuff, and told people to try to deter them, because one thing about me, I'm an administrator. So y'all know I'm an administrator. So I've been taught, you keep documentation. So baby, I always have some type of documentation, like I got proof. But that's not a good thing for me to use it on people in a manner that will hurt them. If I'm trying to use what I know and what I have to hurt someone, that's bleeding on other people, and that's not fair. That's not right. And so we shouldn't do it, okay? And if you want to be your bet, if you want, because guess what? At the end of the day, what goes around does come around. And the Bible puts it like this. It's called the law of reciprocity, okay? So the seed that you sow, it's going to yield a harvest. So it's going to come back up. It may not come back. And see, this is the thing. I have children. So I may not necessarily experience everything, the results of all the seeds that I've planted. But that harvest can come up in my lineage. And I don't want to leave. That's not the type of legacy that I want to leave for my children. That's not the type of harvest that I want to. And then sometimes it'll come back up on me. And y'all, the way these seeds and sowing and reaping, and the harvest has caught up with the time. Like as soon as you sow a seed, the harvest is popping up, and now I can't stop my blessing by bleeding on other folks. Now I had to do a little pause on that one. Then number 4, you got to cover the wound. And this helps to protect it. This helps to keep it from reopening. This helps you to keep it from reopening before it actually heals. And you may need to cover the wound in prayer, because in prayer is not just about telling God about what's wrong with what's going on. It's also about listening and receiving instructions of how to walk through that process of healing. So you may even find that in prayer that you're directed to go to a professional. So it's okay if sometimes it requires therapy, and sometimes it requires prayer and therapy. All the time it requires prayer. But it's okay that if you need to go get a professional. But the thing in this process, when you're covering the room, it's important that you are intentional and you are consistent. And this is also the place where it's going to require work. Because when you have a physical wound, that bandage that you put on that wound to cover, that's a daily thing. You got to keep putting a clean bandage on it. So you got to keep on making sure that you're not just doing it's not like you do the work one time one day and then you leave the bandage on there and then oh boom, it's healed. No, you got to keep taking that bandage off and putting a new clean dressing on that thing. And so you have to do the work. And so sometimes during prayer, God will give you an action plan of what it is that you need to do in order to do the work. Or when you go to a professional, a therapist or a counselor or a trusted advisor, they will give you a plan that you have to walk through the process to do the work. And when you do the work, then you start the process of healing. And you have to be careful to not allow anything else to come in that's going to slow down or stop that healing. And last but not least, sometimes the wound is so deep that once you identify that wound, you got to jump straight and you need to seek medical advice. You know, sometimes if you see the white meat or something like that, or if it's wide, you know, gate wide open, don't try to doctor on it yourself, because see, that's where you can cause more damage. And that's the same thing with emotional wounds. Sometimes we are cut so deep that we try to sit back and we try to handle it ourselves, and we're bleeding out, and we have some deep wounds that are not, that sometimes by the time we go to a professional, they're so deep and they've been so badly damaged that we have to spend that much more time working through our healing process. So the quicker you do it, the better it is for you to do. Now, I'll leave this with you again from the words from Pastor Edmondson. Heal so you can hear what's being said without the filter of your wound. It's so important for our growth and development as a person for us to pay attention to our healing. That's a part of self-care. So y'all listen, this was a little bit long, but I believe it was necessary. So this has been your TMI moment with Terra. I'm going to see you the next time. Y'all remember that this is the day that the Lord has made. Make a conscious, calculated decision to rejoice and be glad in it. Don't forget, you can go to my website. You can pick up my book, Finding Your Voice Inside of the Noise. I wrote this 30-day devotional journal to help you in your journey to find your voice despite everything that's going on around you. Y'all be blessed. See you the next time. Bye-bye.